Good morning. Committee on Parole is called to order. Today is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. The time is 9:01 a.m. My name is Cheryl Renanza, serving as chairman of today's parole panel. My colleagues on the panel this morning, seated to my left is Mrs. Jerry Ledoux, and to my right is Mr. Danny Byron. We are located at DOC headquarters in Baton Rouge, and I'd like for the staff here in Baton Rouge, please introduce yourself for the record.
Cheryl, Parole.
All right, thank you. And our first remote location this morning is at Livingston Parish Jail. Good morning. With the officer, would you please introduce yourself for the record?
My name is Sergeant Jennifer Gomez of Classifications.
All right, thank you, Sergeant Gomez, for accommodating us this morning. And we have Mr. Simmons. Is that you?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you introduce yourself, sir? Tell us your name and DOC number, please.
My name is Thomas Simmons, DOC number 329701.
All right, we're here for a revocation decision this morning, Mr. Simmons. And do you recall signing a parole revocation questionnaire?
Yes, ma'am.
You have that there with you?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that your signature at the bottom of that page, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, based on that information contained in that document, you're not eligible for appointing counsel this morning. So are you ready to proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to read the allegations against you, Mr. Simmons, after which you'll enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. And
Yes,
then
ma'am.
after we finish going through the allegations, Mr. Byron will be asking you some questions. Okay, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Simmons, you're accused of violating condition number 1 of your parole conditions, and it states you were released on good time parole on October 16, 2024, and never reported to probation and parole for intake process. How do you plead to violating number 1?
Guilty.
Right? The next one is condition number 2, and it states on October 15, 2024, you were seen at your approved residence of 1418 Jordan Avenue, New Orleans, Louisiana, and was instructed to report to the New Orleans District Office for intake processing. You never showed up, and you moved to a different address out of the district's area of responsibility without permission. How do you plead to violating condition number 2?
Guilty.
And then we have, lastly, condition number 3. You are a sex offender moved from your approved residence of 1418 Jordan Avenue to 26800 Haynes Settlement Road in Springfield, Louisiana, an address that had previously been denied. Your victim was under the age of 13, and there was a prohibited entity within 1,000 feet of the Haynes Settlement Road address. How do you plead to violating condition number 3?
Guilty.
All right, sir. Would you answer Mr. Byron's questions, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Mr. Simmons, you pretty much answered all of my questions already. You pled guilty to everything. This is not your first time being released and having to register, and you violated it again. I don't have any more questions. Unless you want, I'll give you a chance to make a statement. If you want to give us an excuse or something why that happened.
Yes, sir. Well, I never in my life lived in New Orleans, and they had me in the lower ninth ward. I knew nothing about living in New Orleans or how to maneuver in New Orleans. And when I did come back to this parish, I was up there registering with my niece had brought me up there with money to pay. And I didn't even know they had to put a warrant out for my arrest. I just turned 66 years old. And my original out date was January the 11th of 2023. I stayed in Callahoo Correctional Center 21 months over my out date, trying to get me an address to go to. And above that, I've been going through things where I'm depressed a lot because like I said, my out date was January the 11th, and my mama died January the 28th. Had I been able to come get out, I probably could have visited my mother before she passed. I had all of that weighing on me too. And I didn't know that I almost lost my baby brother and my baby sister that same year too, because they both had operations too, and I didn't know that until I got back to this parish. But this is where I grew up, in Livingston Parish. This is my home. And I do admit I've been stubborn in my days. rebellious, wouldn't ask people for help. At this time, I had people help me paying my registration fee. And I was out there helping a man named Larry Norman do yard work around his house, and he would pay me. And I would give that money to my niece to hold for me, to come up here to register. The only thing I didn't do was report to the parole office in a week when I came home. But I was doing everything else I was supposed to do. And it's my fault.
That's the most important thing to be on parole, is to report to your parole officer. You've been around the block a bunch.
Yes,
You
sir.
know that?
Yes, sir. And like I said, I admit that I had been stubborn and it's my fault I didn't go. It's my fault I didn't go. And the parole office in New Orleans was quite a distance from where I was staying, and I didn't know how to get there. Like I said, I wasn't from that area. I've never lived in New Orleans. Then they had me in the lower ninth ward. I didn't know nobody. I was sticking out like a sore thumb down there. I went down there. I was down there days without nothing to eat because I had no money, and I knew nobody there. I had access to food. Why? Because I know people in this parish. And this, like I said, this time they was helping me, and I did ask them, would y'all help me if I needed y'all? And they said yes, and they was doing that, sir, ma'am.
Understand, that's all.
So Catahoula helped you find the address in New Orleans?
But there was a fellow there that told me about this place called the First 72, which I had never heard about it before, and he had the address and the phone number, and he gave it to me. And I worked in the laundry room in Catahoula,
So that was the First 72 on Jordan Avenue or wherever it was?
the woman
Okay, well, look, listen, I don't need any more explanation. I'm very familiar with the First 72, and they were able surely to guide you and help you get transportation, and certainly to report to your parole officer. I agree with Mr. Byra that you've been around the block a few times and you know what you're supposed to do. And yeah, you're right. You were just being stubborn. So I think we're prepared to vote. Mr. Byra?
I'll vote to revoke probation, parole.
Mrs. Ledoux?
Based on guilty plea, I've got to revoke.
Mr. Simmons, I also vote to revoke your parole. You pled guilty to all 3 violations. So today, sir, your parole is being revoked. Sergeant Gomez, that concludes our business at your facility. Thank you so much for helping us out today.
Thank you. You have a great day.
Well, I'll be with y'all a little while longer.